Hey y'all, this is Jillian from Maxine Makes Magic, and today we're heading down the rabbit hole into Wonderland to check out the Cheshire Cafe and the Magic Kingdom to try the Cheshire Cat Tail. I have been to the Magic Kingdom over 30 times in my life, and I've actually never given this treat a try, but I see it everywhere online. It's got such a cult following, I figured it's my time to try to make it at home. I just got back from the parks last weekend. I didn't go to the Magic Kingdom though, I know, crazy, but I really want to give this one a try. I'm gonna go ahead and make actual puff pastry today. I bought some puff pastry dough too, just in case it doesn't work out, because it's very technical. So I wanna just say, if you wanna use store-bought puff pastry dough, that's totally okay, but we're gonna give puff pastry dough a try. So if you wanna be adventurous, if you wanna be like Alice and get out of your comfort zone, definitely go ahead and give the full recipe a try, but if not, you can use any store-bought pastry or puff pastry dough and just follow the recipe and the instructions on the back of the box.
Starting with our pastry cream, we're going to pour milk into a small saucepan over medium-high heat. We're going to follow up with some vanilla extract because that's going to add some much-needed flavor to our pastry cream. And to add some much-needed balance, we're going to add in just a little bit of kosher salt. We're going to bring the mixture to a boil, making sure we just stir things occasionally. We do not want that milk to burn. While our milk is boiling, we're going to use a separate bowl and mix together cornstarch, sugar, as well as some egg with a whisk. Cornstarch is actually going to help us thicken the pastry cream without giving it that really floury flavor. You will notice in today's video, I am combining the ingredients over my saucepan. This was just for ease of filming, so do not feel the need to do that. Now that our milk's come to a nice boil, we are ready to go ahead and add a little bit of milk into our egg mixture. This process is actually called tempering, and we do this because if we added the egg mixture directly into our saucepan, we do run the risk of our eggs curdling. We'll use our ladle to add 1/3 of the milk into the egg mixture, and then we'll want to whisk constantly. We can pour that egg mixture into our saucepan of hot milk and continue whisking over medium-high heat until we get a nice thick mixture. To achieve a smooth pastry cream, I grabbed a glass bowl and fine mesh sieve that I'll run my pastry cream through to avoid any lumps or clumps. We'll want to let this mixture cool down for about 2 to 3 minutes, and while I failed to record it, you do add 2 tablespoons of butter for some much needed richness that you'll stir into the pastry cream. We can set this aside in the fridge and get started on our puff pastry. To make our puff pastry in a medium-sized mixing bowl, we're going to combine flour, salt, and cold butter. Today we are going to use a pastry cutter to cut our butter into our flour. This is going to make sure that none of our ingredients warm up. A quick word of caution when making puff pastry dough is that everything needs to stay really cold. It might sound a little wacky, but I did put my butter in the freezer and my flour and salt in the refrigerator before filming. We want to achieve these pea-sized granules before moving on. Creating a well in the center of our bowl, we're going to add in ice cold water, and using a spoon, we're going to gently stir until the mixture is just combined and starting to form a dough ball. It's really important to remind you guys not to overmix your dough. If it's a little bit shaggy or floury, that's totally okay. A good rule of thumb when making just about anything is always to undermix instead of overmix. To avoid warming up our pastry dough, we're going to want to move really quickly during our next step. We'll go ahead and flour our countertop and form our dough into a nice square. We're going to flour our rolling pin and roll out the dough into a rectangle that's about 10 inches long. And really do not be shy here with the flour. Based on the recipe instructions, we want to avoid any sticking of the dough, so use as much flour as you think you need. Once we've went ahead and rolled our pastry dough out, we're going to fold 1/3 of the dough in on itself, similar to that of a letter. To avoid any extra flour within our pastry layers, we're going to use a paintbrush or a pastry brush to just remove any of that excess flour. Once we've dusted off the flour, we'll take the bottom portion of the dough we did not fold and fold it up over the top. Once you have your dough folded into a new rectangle, you can go ahead and reflour your surface to avoid sticking, and you'll want to turn the dough at a 90-degree angle. This folding and rolling process is what's going to help us achieve those really puffy, fluffy layers in our puff pastry dough. You'll want to complete this action a total of 4 times until you've completely rolled out your pastry dough into a nice, smooth rectangle. The one thing that won't fully combine into the flour is the butter, and that is totally okay. It will work itself in as we continue this turning and folding process, but just wanted to call that out. I feel like when I first made this, I was a little bit nervous about it, but the more research that I did, I actually learned that that is completely normal for a puff pastry dough. So the more you know, I guess. Another quick tip is it could be really helpful to just kind of crank the AC down in your house. It is the middle of the summer in the Midwest, and my house was getting increasingly warmer, so I did have to go ahead and just turn my AC down a little bit to make sure that my kitchen wasn't too warm while preparing the dough. Another alternative option is you can definitely pop this in the fridge as you go. In the rolling out process, we just want to keep the ingredients as absolutely chilled as possible. You'll notice as we get to this final turn that the ingredients are really starting to come together, which I was super excited about. And once we get that final turn done, we can go ahead and wrap our dough in some plastic wrap and refrigerate for about 20 to 25 minutes or until we're ready to use it. Now for the fun part, we get to assemble our Cheshire Cat Tails. You'll want to go ahead and preheat the oven to 425 degrees, lining a baking sheet with some parchment paper and setting that aside. Our puff pastry dough is looking beautiful once we've unfolded it, and we're going to want to use our rolling pin to roll it out to about a 10 by 12 inch in length piece of pastry dough. Definitely do not worry about rolling this out perfectly. We are making these Cheshire Cat Tails for our friends and family at home. So once we go to cut them later, if a couple of them turn out a little bit wonky, that is okay. We are talking about Alice in Wonderland after all. What is more wacky and wonky than this crazy movie? So it is totally okay if they are not perfect. Make them how you want them. Now that we have this beautiful piece of pastry dough completely rolled out, we're gonna go ahead and take a 1/4 cup of our pastry cream and spread it over half of our rolled out pastry dough. I made sure not to go all the way to the edges because when we go to twist the pastry dough, we wanna make sure that it's not leaking out too much. Now that we've laid out our pastry cream, we can move on to adding some mini chocolate chips. You can go ahead and sprinkle about a 1/4 cup or a little bit more if you're like me on top of the pastry cream. You will want to make sure that you reserve some of your mini chocolate chips because we will add them to the twists later on. Now we can fold the puff pastry dough in half so that the pastry cream and the chocolate chips are completely covered. Another friendly reminder to flour your surface so you don't have sticking of your dough like I did here. Once you fold that dough in half, you are going to want to seal off the edges. Because I am using homemade puff pastry dough that I rolled out myself, it's not a perfect rectangle. If you use some puff pastry dough from the store, you may be able to achieve more of that perfect fold. I, of course, was not able to do that, but that's totally okay. It's not going to affect the look or the taste or the end result. So if you see what I'm doing here, you just go ahead and fold the ends in a little bit. You can try to stretch the pastry dough to meet the edges of the area that didn't get completely covered, but if you do that, just make sure you don't spread your dough out too thin or it will tear. Using a sharp knife, or in my case, a pizza cutter, we're going to cut the pastry into several strips. The recipe calls for about 6. I did significantly more than 6, and that's totally okay. Just make sure you're cutting from left to right so each strip has part of a folded edge. Once we've cut our strips, we can go ahead and transfer them over to our lined baking sheet and make our cat tails into little twists. To make our cattail twist, we're going to take each piece and turn it in opposite directions in order to create that quintessential cattail. And once all of our tails are completed, we can go ahead and add in some mini chocolate chips into the gaps where you see the pastry cream, as well as the already existing chocolate chips oozing out of the cattails. To achieve that golden brown color, we're going to go ahead and scramble an egg in order to make ourselves an egg wash. Not only do we get a really nice golden brown color, but we also get a really professional shine once these guys come out of the oven. I did not have a pastry brush, so I did just use a basting brush, and that worked completely fine. You can use whatever you have at home. We're going to go ahead and pop these in the oven for 15 minutes or until the twists are puffed and golden brown, and we'll transfer them over to a wire rack to cool completely before icing them with the pink and purple icing. I let these guys cool for about 2 to 3 minutes before I move them over to the wire rack, and just be really careful when you do this. The pastries are very delicate. To make our icing, we're going to use 2 small ramekins filled with powdered sugar because we need to make both a pink and a purple icing to represent the true Cheshire Cat. After measuring out our powdered sugar, we can go ahead and add our whole milk. Now, I always use the milk cap rather than a teaspoon or a tablespoon to measure out the milk I add to my powdered sugar. You don't want a really runny icing, and sometimes I find that using the full amount that a recipe calls for can really thin out the icing too fast. So just use your best judgment to add a little bit of milk at a time. I would assume a milk cap in this case is probably around a teaspoon, maybe 3/4 of a teaspoon, but I just eyeball it as I go and add more as I need it to just, again, avoid really thinning out that icing. To make our icing colors, I used my Wilton Ice food coloring in the colors rosa or pink, as well as violet or purple, and I absolutely love these colors. Anytime I have the excuse to use them, I definitely do. I just used a toothpick or two to add a little bit of color to start into my icing mixture. I just want to call out that a little goes a long way. You will get a really beautiful, vibrant color, but you don't need to go overboard with adding too much color to the icing. We do not want to impact that flavor, so just keep that in mind. Now for the fun part, we're gonna mix all of that icing and coloring together to get that really bright, fun, fluorescent Cheshire Cat pink. And of course, we cannot forget about our Cheshire Cat purple. Went ahead again and mix the color up. I'm obsessed with how this one turned out. I'm really starting to feel like violet's my favorite color of all the icing colors I have. Really obsessed with this. It's so cute. Now here's the moment you've all been waiting for. We get to decorate our Cheshire Cat tails. I always take my wire cooling rack and pop it over my parchment paper whenever I am icing cookies, desserts, whatever it may be. It makes for a really easy cleanup. You're just gonna take your spoon and run it over from left to right, however you want. Go ahead, be Picasso, and decorate your cattails. If you have little ones at home, this is a great opportunity for them to jump in and help with the recipe without causing too much harm. It's really fun, whether you're doing this, again, with little ones, family, friends, whoever it may be. And if you've got 2 folks working on the recipe, each of you can take a color and have at it. If you want to add additional flavoring into your icing mixture, you can go ahead and add vanilla when you're combining the milk and the powdered sugar. Another good flavor could be strawberry or raspberry extract. Whatever sounds good to you, just use your best judgment when adding it. I always say add like a drop or 2 max. Would not go for a teaspoon or more. It's going to be way too strong of a flavor, but you can definitely make these your own and add in any additional flavors that sound good to you.
All right, y'all, let's go ahead and give one of these a try. I'm gonna go ahead with this one. I'm so excited. It's amazing. Look at the filling on the inside. Let me pop this down so I can make sure you guys can see it. You get that really amazing chocolate layer that I knew when I folded it over it'd have chocolate in it, but I didn't think it would be that prominent. I'm speechless. This is so good. Who knew? The recipe will be in the description below and all the information you need to make this recipe at home. If you like Disney Parks content, I'm your girl. I have a whole playlist over on my channel, so go ahead and check that out. And if you love Disney content, be sure to like, subscribe, follow along, share with your other Disney adult friends and family. I want to continue to just share this amazing journey with you. It's been so fun so far. So go ahead and check out that playlist. And if you have any recipes that you'd like me to try, make sure you comment those down below. I definitely want to check those out. I read each and every one of the comments that I get. So make sure to comment and maybe you'll see one of the recipes you recommended in a future video. As always, this is Jillian from Maxine Makes Magic, and I hope you guys have a magical day. Bye.